and welcome. My name is Karina Dalkey. I'm from the Telco and Edge Cloud Business Unit of VMware. And together with Carl Whitelock, VP of Communication Service Provider Operation and Monetization at IDC, we will be going through the next 25 minutes focusing on how to use AI, analytics, and automation in your 4G and 5G networks. I'll turn it over to Carl and then close out the session.
Thanks, Karina. Everyone knows there's a lot of things happening with 5G. But I would like to relate the operational readiness of 5G to that of a train, and I'll explain more as I go throughout my discussion here with you. But the development, if you think about it, of the technology itself has been underway now for 7 or 8 years, been in the hands of the technologists and the engineers, and they've done a fantastic job of bringing something out of nothing to a very smart and solid operational technology. And now as we combine that with the multi-access edge computing capabilities that have recently begun to come into light, that really adds to the 5G promises. So we've gone through trial deployments, proof of concepts, and they've all proven the design parameters of speed and latency and throughput, and we're not going to talk about those. Everyone understands them. But the key thing is about operational readiness. As deployments now are starting to happen, we're finding more and more challenge with a lot of different things in a lot of different business and network management functional areas. And we'll explain that more in greater detail in just a moment. Let's review quickly, though, what we've got as a network. You've got people and things that are interacting in a number of different ways, mostly on a mobile basis with 5G, but also from a fixed line perspective. All of that traffic that is being generated is carrying over into a core network that's evolving. And that core network is attached to the edge cloud. And there's multiple low latency reasons for why the edge cloud is starting to take on a very significant life. And also the same core is connected to the internet where application and content services reside. So as we start to look at this, I've focused mostly on the 5G aspect, but there are other things that are happening in this complicated network that adds even more interesting points. CBRS is another technology on the LTE side, which is radio as well. But then we also have the cable network that is coming into play. So really, you can look at 5G and say, look, it's not 4G plus 1. There's simply a lot of other things that are going on. Deployment of 5G technology is coming in stages. Things are still evolving in terms of the way the standards and the equipment and everything else is going to interoperate. Also, as part of the standards process, which is really interesting and exciting, is that the 5G radio will now work interchangeably with Wi-Fi through the Wi-Fi 6 specifications. Now, this is important because in a data session or a call session, it's an inter-technology handoff, and that brings some interesting challenges from an SLA perspective, even from a revenue management perspective. Nevertheless, it's one more of the dynamic issues that are something that we haven't had to really deal with too much in the past. So 5G also brings personalized business solutions. And what I mean is at the edge, we'll see things that are unique for a given industry that will help that industry solve a particular problem. This whole partner ecosystems are forming out there around the network. And those are going to have some level of management capability to be able to simplify the onboarding process, to work with operators, especially as these enriched services become more significant in the greater customer population and enhancing the customer experience. And then finally, as we get down a little ways further in the 5G evolution, network slices, and I'm talking about inter-carrier network slicing, will now have a greater ability to deliver some really powerful capabilities, and it will really change the way businesses do business. So let's move forward a little bit, because what we've done as an industry now is we've put a lot of promises to a lot of different industries. Companies in no matter what industry you pick are getting pretty excited about what they see and what that can do for their business. So it's kind of like a crunching together of their needs directly with the network. And most people aren't realizing that there's a cushion. There's something in between there that allows or enables everyone to work together in a smooth and efficient manner, whether that's customers from a self-care perspective, or whether that's partners interacting to deliver on end-to-end customer value, and also obviously revenue flow and the SLA management that I talked about before. So what is that missing layer? Well, it's just what you think it is. It's the operations and orchestration, monetization. It's all of the key management functions that enable the network technology to easily work with customers in all of these different industries. So whether, like I said, customer care and the order management functions through to partner management, billing, and a big one around service assurance, which is where SLA management resides. So we're going to talk about that in just a second. So as you can see, there are numerous aspects here, many of which are very dynamic now and need specialized attention. New requirements are significant. And if we look at what's been delivered up to this point, many operators have a multitude of systems out there. They are working interchangeably, some of which are very specific to given functions. And some of these systems are, 40 years old, go figure. They have limited functionality and they have app-specific databases, which create some other interesting problems. There's really a completely inflexible architecture in these old systems because they were never designed for flexibility or dynamic interactivity. And probably the most significant thing that I've seen recently is a realization that most of these systems have no ability to support machine learning or any sort of AI, which is an absolute requirement of what is needed with the new network technologies that are coming at us. So dynamic data really isn't a feasible option in these existing systems, and therefore transformation by simply rejiggering the way these systems work is impractical. It's almost like we have to look at something bigger and better and different. With time being what it is today, that the purpose of this discussion is not to go into how do we best transform, but I want to focus on something related to the functionality of all of those different blocks that were a short while ago mentioned. Because within the service assurance block, there's a lot of functions. Traditional ones like monitoring the network for fault conditions and for services as they perform across the network. Very standard, very accepted, and very needed functions from the past. But then there are new things that are coming about. VNF, CNF performance monitoring, end-to-end service monitoring, and most importantly, it's not just how is the customer experience anymore. It's now breaking to what is the partner experience like? What is the employee experience like in this work from home environment that we all seem to find ourselves in, and which is probably going to be around for a long time to come. And then there are other factors, one of which is something called cell site assurance, which I'm going to illustrate for you in a little more detail. But understand, each one of these sub-functions inside the service assurance block has a lot of particular and dynamic needs that are simply not easily addressable by today's business environment. With the design of networks today, in the 5G world especially, the network engineers want to and have always been good at designing the network to meet peak traffic needs based on a lot of factors. And so once the network is designed and built around those factors, then we can measure the experience that we expect the user to have through something that we call active probing. And this is a bot that sits in and actually simulates the way a customer would interact with the network. But then also we have the availability of data from the actual usage, customers using the network from passive probes, which is another aspect of this data collection function. What I'm saying here is if we look at this from a high level perspective, the load volume of the cells at any given time are all within tolerance levels. The handoff from one cell to the next for whatever network traffic needs to transition seems to also be in a normal state. Everything is operating according to design. So what happens when we throw a monkey wrench into this? For example, today, all the data that's within a cell site, we're measuring it on 15-minute intervals, simply because there's so much data, as in the past, we just had no way to look at every single piece of what was coming or what was available there. So when I say the monkey wrench, what happens if a bus stops at just the right spot in one of these cell sites? And say it's a 7 to 10 minute stop, and 30 to 40 people get off and start taking pictures, and then they begin to send messages to friends and family. They send videos out to wherever. And for that brief moment in time, this extra data volume affects not just the experience each one of these people might have who are riding the bus, but it affects the experience of all the people who happen to be honed in to that particular cell site. So over that 15-minute sampling interval, if handled, or let's say if transitioned fast enough, the sample would never show that this activity happened. So the experience during that time of a whole bunch of people definitely was affected. SLAs are probably affected, and really the customer experience was pretty lousy. But from the measuring instruments that we have available to us, it clearly showed that nothing happened. I guess what I'm saying here is that telemetry data presented on these average time blocks may not be the best available strategy any longer in the 5G MEC world. In fact, we need to start looking at all of the data on a more real-time basis, and that puts a great big challenge on a lot of things. Because if we don't start looking at it that way, then as we've just seen, this average blindness is sometimes referred to as we can actually have things happening that we can't figure out why they happened, because the data tells us nothing really happened when in fact it did. So latency sensitive apps and SLA guaranteed network slices in many of these types of situations are going to suffer performance hits when something like this occurs. The key takeaways are automation. We need to automate everything that's going on here because there's so much data, humans cannot keep up with it. So 5G is this evolutionary process, and it's going to just keep adding data more and more to what we need to look at to make sure that we have an effective and efficient way in which we can deliver the quality of service necessary. And we think we can meet those objectives by looking at the data in this rightful manner through automation if all of the operations and orchestration, assurance, and monetization functions are met first with the automated capabilities that can deliver on the insight that's needed, and then secondly, to have the means to responsibly act on that insight. If we fail to deliver, what's going to happen here is that not only revenue objectives are not going to be met, but other things could happen. And as you are reminded of the train that's coming around the corner, it's expecting to go through a tunnel, which is the operations functions and management functions that are really strategic here. Only that tunnel's not built. And that's where, like I say, it could be more than just not meeting revenue objectives. With this point, I'd like to turn the time now over to my friend, Karina.
Thank you so much, Carl. I'll start with VMware's vision, which is to run, build, and manage any app on any cloud on any device. But as Carl mentioned, the need to dynamically support all of the new aspects of operations, assurance, and monetization is so important for today's fast-changing world. Automation is a key part of our Telco Cloud portfolio strategy. At the base of our portfolio is our Telco Cloud infrastructure, and this includes our NFV and SD-WAN solutions. Moving up is the orchestration layer with our Telco Cloud automation solution. And at the top, we have our operations layer. This is where our automated assurance solution comes in that combines performance and fault and business management in one tool, And this is also where our 4G and 5G AI solution, known as Uhana, comes in. It gives mobile operators actionable insights and helps to automate processes to make managing LTE and 5G networks a slightly less daunting task. Now, diving into the aspect of automation, there's definitely a general consensus that the tools of the past will not get us where we need to be. And that's why we are all innovating every day. Now more than ever, it's so important as we work, learn, and connect with family over virtual networks. So customer experience is a huge differentiator in this transformation that COVID-19 is driving, and the expectations are changing too. But this also drives up complexity in the network, and it's very difficult to find and keep skilled staff in this competitive market. So based on the conversations that we've had with our customers, we found 3 key areas where VMware is working to apply our technology to help reduce complexity faced by mobile operators today. The first is the area of 4G to 5G transition. Every major operator is planning for or rolling out 5G infrastructure. And that transformation from 4G to 5G presents big business challenges in terms of CapEx investment, but then also the expense to operate the new network. It also brings significant technical challenges. And one of the biggest is the fact that the technology is still so new, and you're dealing with new spectrum, and no one's done this before. So how do you know if your 5G network, the one that you've spent a lot of time and a lot of money rolling out, is actually delivering a good experience to your end users? It turns out it's not quite a simple problem to solve. So I'll share a quick story about a tier 1 mobile operator. Their network team did a great job of rolling out a 5G NSA network across the country. Of course, that took a lot of knowledge, a lot of expertise, and a lot of hours to get it up and running. And they're proud of this accomplishment, and rightly so. However, once the network was turned on, there were a few things that weren't initially apparent. So in some areas of the country, there were plenty of people with 5G handsets, and they were in the range of 5G cell towers, but yet less than 20% of those people were able to get a 5G connection. So that was an eye-opening stat, and VMware helped provide them with the visibility into the issue and then into the insight into what may be causing the problem and present some recommendations for remediation. 5G also offers the promise of new, higher value services for enterprise customers. And of course, here the goal is to generate new revenues and offset the cost of the 5G rollout. So you can think of things like private LTE or 5G networks, VIP enterprise services, or premium SD-WAN services. Taking the example of SD-WAN, if you want to achieve the best experience for your users, you need to know where and when to steer traffic on and off of the network. And having a fine-grained understanding of the network in real time, not 2 hours later, will help you enable new and differentiated services and allow you to monetize those. And finally, automation for better quality of service. Having all these insights is really helpful, but what's more helpful is being able to automate some of the processes and the steps needed to remediate problems. So VMware works with SON and orchestration tools to understand the exact problem and interlock with them to take appropriate action. Why do we think data-driven control is so important for 5G networks? Well, today's technology is so complex that it's just basically taken many things out of the bounds of human control. So you have new applications like telemedicine and connected cars that require low latency. And then you have applications like augmented and virtual reality and video gaming, which require lots of bandwidth and low latency. and I know all about these must-have requirements because I have 4 boys at home that are very concerned with their video game performance. And of course, IoT has different requirements. And so they'll all need different slices of the network, if you will. And just throwing blanket technologies like AI at these different use cases isn't going to work. So each application needs a deep knowledge of the domain and the network it's going to travel over, and then you can apply AI for each situation. So we at VMware are using our knowledge of cloud and container-based services and our knowledge of the cellular network to apply domain-specific AI to help modify and optimize the network in real time so that applications can run at their very best. And of course, my boys can be happy with the response time of their video games. How does Johanna help you address these requirements? Our AI-based platform takes in telemetry streaming data from the cellular network directly from the eNode Bs and gNode Bs and translates it to network control. So there are 3 stages along this path. First, VMware helps you understand and observe conditions down to the subscriber level. It joins 4G and 5G data streams and forms individual subscriber sessions, which gives you a complete view of your customer's call journey. This makes it possible to use the data in real time and take action in the right moment. So if I go back to the example that Carl gave, when everybody got off the bus and they used their cell phones at the same time, the quality was poor and there was lots of congestion. And based on most tools today, most mobile operators wouldn't have known that there was a problem because it all happened within a 15-minute chunk of time. Here in the blue boxes, you can see the different views comparing standard performance counters and detailed analytics. In addition to that, 4G network stats are separate from 5G network stats, and they're not that easily combined. So worse yet, the information won't get into the hands of anybody who could do anything about it for quite a bit of time, usually 2 to 3 hours or more. But new applications, and more importantly, their users, are not going to tolerate that type of performance quality. So Johanna provides you the ability to see detailed information in real time about each subscriber. Now you can see exactly what's happening to your subscribers in time to take actions. Next is where AI comes in. Johanna uses neural networks to give you predictive capabilities. So if you look at that massive amount of data that's being collected, it's impossible to sift through it all manually. So Johanna uses AI to analyze millions of events per second, establish baselines, and detect anomalies. And once those anomalies are detected, it applies neural networks to determine the root cause of the problem. And then the platform determines if it's an isolated problem or a broader concern and prioritizes those issues with the biggest impact, such as those that affect the largest amount of subscribers. And finally, Johanna uses deep reinforcement learning to make recommendations to fix these issues. So integrating with SON systems or orchestrators, it recommends courses of action in real time. And then using that information, customers can see improvement in downloads and upload speeds, intelligently steer their SD-WAN traffic, and improve overall performance. And this will help enable a whole new set of 5G services and offerings. As Carl mentioned, automated data analysis is a strategic part of making your 5G operations and monetization a success. Building in domain-specific analytics and real-time automation to your 5G network from the ground up will allow your operations teams the agility and speed needed to realize the promise of 5G. And you can get our full report on our website, and we thank you so much for your time today.